I've searched a long time for a good solution to manage all my SSH connections, so I wanted to have a centralized approach where I can manage all my servers running on my home network and on my cloud instances from different devices, where I don't need to copy all the private and public keys anymore. But it still should be a secured connection, and I think this also could be very interesting for any company environment when you, for example, want to give some developers or some engineers access to your SSH servers. Of course, you then want to have some advanced features, like you want to have a secured connection, you want to have a good logging, a good monitoring and auditing of those sessions. And I have found a very interesting software that is called Teleport that can do all these things for you. This software is completely open source and it also comes with a completely free community edition. And in this video I will show you how you can easily set up this software in a containerized approach on your cloud instances and how you can use that to manage all your SSH connections on your servers. So if that sounds amazing to you guys, then keep watching. Hi everybody, my name is Christian and I make great tutorials and content for IT professionals. I also stream every Wednesday and Thursday, so if you have any questions or you want to get in touch with people who share the same interest like you, just jump into my live streams and we can have a discussion about this. So in this video I want to show you the software Teleport that is made by the company Gravitational, and this is an open source software to manage SSH connections. I found this software when I was searching for a good SSH proxy solution. It also can run in a container that can be managed by Docker and Docker Compose, and if you know me guys, you know that I absolutely love containerizing and I love to deploy everything in a Docker container if this is possible, and this is exactly what we're going to do in this video. So I will create new servers on my cloud instance, and I have already prepared one server that is the Teleport server, and I will show you how you can easily set up Teleport on a cloud server that you can use to manage all your servers. So you can also manage devices that are behind a NAT firewall, because Teleport can also create a reverse tunnel, and this is actually the best feature for me personally, because my ISP doesn't give me a real IPv4 address at home and I have a hard time connecting to my servers from outside. So I can easily use this software to just create a reverse tunnel from my local area network to my cloud instance, and then I can just easily manage all my servers without using a VPN tunnel. So as I said, this software comes in a community free edition, but it also has an enterprise license. So if you are a company and you plan to implement that in your production environment, you can also buy an enterprise license and you get some advanced features, like you can add some external authentication servers to authorize via your Active Directory, or you can have a single sign-on. So you can just check out the Gravitational homepage and check their enterprise license. I think this is pretty useful for any company, but if you're running this in your own home lab solution, I think the community edition is absolutely fine. I have done that to deploy this in my own environment and it's running very well. You can also create multiple users that are secured via two-factor authentication, so that is also pretty amazing, and it can also raise the security of your servers. Of course, you don't need to run this in a Docker container on a cloud server. You can, in theory, also install that directly on your Linux server and host this on premise. So I cannot cover all the different deployment scenarios on this short video. So what I can just recommend you to do, if you want to, or if you plan to implement this in your own infrastructure and you have a different deployment approach, you should just check out the official homepage. They have a great guide how to set up this in production environment, and they explain all the different architecture designs of this software very well, so go and check out the documentation. But in this video we will focus on a containerized approach and set up this on my cloud instance. And I also want to show you how you can easily use a load balancer to terminate your HTTPS connection with trusted and managed certificates on your cloud environments. So I think this is the best solution if you want to run this in a production environment and secure this with trusted HTTPS certificates. So I have already prepared one cloud server that is running Docker and Docker Compose. Not if you don't know anything about Docker, you probably need to check out my other videos about Docker and Docker Compose before watching this video, otherwise it probably is a bit difficult for you. So I've put you a link to these videos in the description below. Go to check out if you want to learn more about Docker and Docker Compose and why this is just amazing. Okay guys, so don't waste time anymore, let's jump right into the installation part and let's install the Teleport main server on our cloud instance. So let's go. Okay, let's start with the installation of our teleport auth and proxy server. And first we want to create a Docker Compose file that will start the teleport container and run those services. So I have created a new folder in the opt directory that is called teleport. And if we execute an ls, I have prepared a docker-compose.yaml file. Okay, so I open the Docker Compose file node. You don't need to remember all these things here. You can just have a look at the link in the video description below to my written blog article. There you will find all these templates, all the Compose files, the commands I'm using in this tutorial. So you can just copy and paste it and just do some modifications to it. You can see there are two services that are configured. So the first service is just a configuration container. So this is using the image teleport, and the container name is teleport-configure. So you can see it just executes a command that will check if there is a teleport.yaml configuration file in the etc folder, and otherwise it will just create a new one with some basic examples here. And you can see there is a volume folder that is called config, where this configuration file is then stored. And if we go down to our teleport container, this is the actual container that will run the services of teleport. It's also using the same image, but you can see it will wait 1 second for the configuration daemon to paste the configuration file in there, and then automatically start that with the configuration file here. So usually this hostname points to the IP address of your teleport server or to the IP address of a load balancer if you have that in front of this. I will later show you how this is working with a load balancer, because I have added this to use trusted HTTPS certificates from letsencrypt, terminate those certificates on my load balancer so that the teleport server actually doesn't need to take care of those trusted HTTPS certificates. I will show you later how this works when you set up a load balancer in front of that. I think it definitely is recommended to do that, because otherwise you don't have trusted HTTPS certificates. Okay, so what we want to do is we will start the container so that we'll create the configuration file. We later can simply just remove this here, because we only need that once when we first start our container, that it creates this sample configuration file, and we will also do some modifications later. So save this file and place this into this folder here. So I can also cut the Docker Compose file and see if everything is working fine, so that all the configuration stuff is in here. So let's start the Docker container by executing docker compose app, and let's do this in the background with a -d parameter, and it should pull down the image. I've done this before, so you probably won't see that, and then it will start the Docker containers. So let's check if the containers are running by executing docker compose ps, and you should see that 2 containers are now running. The first container is the teleport container that hosts all those services. And you can also see the teleport configure daemon has now immediately exited, but it has created some configuration folders. If we execute an ls, you could see those 2 folders here. If we go into the config folder and execute an ls, we can see there is a teleport.yaml configuration file that was created by the daemon, and this has some default values in it. So we can also edit this later, but I will also want to show you something else. If we go to the data directory and execute an ls, you can see there is a data. We have a cache. We also have the backend databases that are needed to store all the data in it. And we also have the 2 files here. This is a web proxy cert.pm and the web proxy key.pm. So this is a certificate and the private key for the certificate. And this is usually a self-signed certificate that will use the fully qualified domain name that you have used in your Docker Compose file here. So therefore it is really important that this hostname actually points to the correct server and to the correct IP address. Otherwise you probably would need to recreate your container in deleting and restart the deployment process again with a fresh new configuration file. Okay, so let's also open this configuration file. I will just simply use Visual Studio Code to open this configuration file, and you can see this is an example teleport configuration file that was created by the daemon, and it starts with some services. So you can see the teleport service here is actually a node service, so it automatically adds a new node to the configuration that we can manage later. And this node is actually running in the Docker container. But first let's go down, and you can see there's the auth service that was automatically enabled. And this is listening to all IP addresses on the port 3025. So one thing is really important here now. You need to add a new entry here, because otherwise the CA pin will not work correctly, and then you will get errors once you add new nodes to this server. Because you need to add the public ADDR, and the public ADDR needs to point to the exact name you will use as an auth server entry on your nodes later. So usually you would use your fully qualified domain name. In my case this is devthedigitallife.com, and the port is 3025. Okay, so let's scroll down, and you can see there's also an SSH service that is enabled here, and we also have a proxy service this is enabled. We have a listening address here, the web listening address, and we also have the tunnel listening address here. So this is important when you want to create reverse tunnels to your machine later. I will show you that at the end of this video as well. Okay, so as I said, we need to replace this CA pin hash here. But first let's go back to our Docker Compose file and let's do a modification, because we actually don't need this configuration service here anymore. It doesn't hurt you if you leave it in, but I will just remove that because I don't need it anymore. I will also remove the depends on here because that is actually not there anymore. Okay, let's save this file here, and what we need to do right now is we need to restart the Docker container by executing docker compose up-d -- force recreate, and we also want to remove those orphan containers. This is remove orphans. So this will remove the configuration container because we actually don't need it anymore. Let's hit enter and execute this. Okay, let's check if the container is up and running again. So let's execute it ps, and you can see it is up and running. So I want to show you how to set up a load balancer in front of this server and what you need to do, because you want to have trusted HTTPS certificates and you don't want to have this self-signed certificate here, so that you don't get a certification error. Okay, so let me show you how I've set this up in my cloud environment. So now I'm using DigitalOcean as my cloud provider. Of course, you can also use any other cloud provider. This is not a sponsored or supported video by DigitalOcean, but I think it's really easy and it's really awesome. I use that for all of my projects, and if you want to test DigitalOcean, you can also find a link in the video description below where you get $100 credits for 60 days to test out this stuff, and this also helps my channel if you use those services later. So you know the deal, right? Okay guys, so I have added a new load balancer, and the dev.thedigitallife.com FQDN will point to this public IP address of the load balancer here, and this is the public IP address of the teleport server. So what I've done is this load balancer actually will load balance this teleport server here, and the HTTPS connection with the trusted certificates is also terminating here on the teleport load balancer server. So you can see it in settings here. This is pretty easy to set up on DigitalOcean because you can simply just add a new forwarding rule for HTTPS for the port 3080. Use the certificate you can just create at DigitalOcean. Note, if this certificate is managed by your provider or by your load balancer, it usually also is auto-renewing the certificate and you don't need to reload the Docker container and so forth. So this is pretty awesome. And I forwarded this just to the port 3080. So note, this is important now because the auth server is also using HTTPS authorization with self-signed certificate and CA pinning. So therefore the load balancer should not intercept this connection and step into this. So this is important that you forward all those ports here, those 3023, 3, 4 and 5 with a TCP protocol, so that the load balancer doesn't step into this connection and just forwards the TCP connection to your teleport server. This is very important when you want to add nodes or want to connect to SSH and create reverse tunnels and so on. Okay, so I've seen that's pretty easy to set up this load balancing stuff here on DigitalOcean, and yeah, I can just strongly recommend you test this out, and then you can simply just do that. Okay guys, so let's try to access the web interface by using the fully qualified domain name and the port 3080 on the web. And you can see it redirects us to the sign in side of Teleport. Teleport doesn't have any default administrator and password and so on. We first need to create that through the command line, and we also need to create a two-factor authentication bit because Teleport enforces that by default, which is pretty secure and pretty awesome. So let's go back to our server and let's create a new user for this Teleport server. Okay, so this easily can be done by executing the tctl command in the Docker container by executing docker compose exec. I cannot write today. Okay, now we need to use teleport, the Docker container, and then simply execute tctl. If we do that, you should see a help that with all commands that are possible to manage your Teleport server. And you can see, let's also add the tctl status, because I remember we first need to change our CA pin hash. So this is very important. So don't share this with anyone. Note, this is just a test appliance. I will just delete right after this video. So don't try to hack me or something like this. Yeah, but this is very important. So don't share this with anyone because this is very, very important here. So copy this and we can simply just replace the configuration file that this is the teleport.yaml and replace the CA pin here with a real value. Okay, let's save this. After saving this, you probably should need to restart your container, but I will do this later because I want to show you something else. Okay, so we first want to create a user here, and to do that, we will just enter users add. And now we need to specify a username. So you can choose any username you want to use. I will just create a new user called Teleport. And now you can also specify what Linux users this Teleport user is able to log in to the different nodes. So now it is recommended that you use any usernames that you want to log in with. So as an example, I will just enter root because I want to enter as a root user on some Linux servers. I want to enter as an xcat user on some servers. I want to use Christian as a username on some servers, and sometimes when I want to manage my Vagrant servers, I also want to log in with a Vagrant user. So then simply hit enter, and this will automatically create a new invitation token you can now use to create a new user. So simply just copy this link here, go to your web browser and access this. And now it automatically enforces to set up a two-factor authentication and a password. And then you can simply download a two-factor authentication app on your mobile phone. So I'm using the Google authentication all the time, but you can of course also use other authentication services. And simply just scan the QR code, and then your mobile phone will present you a two-factor token that you can just enter. So usually this is just a 6-digit number. I will just enter here. And then I can create this account here. So if this was successful, it takes you to the Teleport web interface, and you can see different clusters here. So a Teleport cluster is basically just a group of different servers you can manage, and it automatically created a new cluster that is called dev.thedigitalife.com. So if I click on this, it will take me to the dashboard, and then we can see all different nodes here we can simply manage with Teleport. And you can see it automatically created a new host that we can manage, and this is the host of the Docker container. You can also see here are active sessions if there are any active sessions, and you can also join these sessions, so you can work with multiple users in one SSH connection, which I think is absolutely awesome. You also have an audit log, so you can see there are some audits when I created this user. You can also access the help and support, community guides, quick start guides, and so on. So here you'll find a lot of great materials and tutorials where you can get help and support. Okay, so let's just open a new connection when we click on connect here, and then we can choose one of the usernames we have used to create the user. For example, in a Docker container, usually only the root user is created, so I will just click on root user and it opens a new session, and we are now logged into the server. So note, this is not the host operating system. This is a node that is running inside the Teleport Docker container. So if we execute a top here, for example, we can see, okay, there are these processes running running in the container, and we can also use the tctl command from inside this shell here. So you don't need to execute the docker compose command anymore. You can simply just use the web interface to manage your server. All those sessions are also automatically recorded. So if we exit this session here, for example, just close this window here and go to the audit log, you can see there is a new session that is ended. And if we click on options here, we can go to the session player and it automatically plays back what we have done here on the machine. So it's really helpful if you do technical research and you cannot remember what you have changed on your server. You can easily replay that. But also if you're running this in a corporate environment, it is very important to have full control over what your users or engineers or developers are doing on these servers. So I think this is really an awesome feature. Okay, so let's also have a look how we can add new servers here to manage in our Teleport cluster. And I want to create a new server on my cloud instance here, so I just go to DigitalOcean and I can show you how easy this is. So create a new droplet here, so this is automatically creating a new cloud server. I will choose the Ubuntu image because this is what I'm used to. Yeah, I will create this in Frankfurt, the data center location, go back, insert my SSH keys, and I want to create one droplet that is called teleport node 1, for example. I can also add tags here. For example, I want to add the development tag and create this in the testing project here. I don't need backups for this and I simply can create the droplet. So this is now creating. So what we then need to do is we need to download the teleport client and add a new node on our teleport auth server so we can manage this later. So once this is creating here, give them a few seconds, we will then create a new container. But wait, we can just simply go here and use this tctl command inside the Docker container here. So this is pretty easy. If we I cannot write today. So if we execute tctl, we can create a new node here. So just simply add nodes add and hit enter. So this will create a new invitation token, and usually you can execute this command here on your Linux server. But note, this is a bit different here because the auth server is using the internal IP address of the Docker container. So this is not the correct IP address and we need to change that later. But I will show you a very easy method without using this simple command here because I prefer to have static configuration files on my nodes. Note, here is the CA pin and the token, so don't share this stuff with anyone else. This is only available for 30 minutes, then it expires. So let's go to our new server and let's create a static configuration file and add those values in here so that server can connect to our teleport cluster. And yeah, this server is now just finished, so that was a perfect timing here. So I can just copy the public IP address, go to my shell. So because I've added my private and public keys, I should be able to log in. And this is working now, so that's great. Now we need to download Teleport. So to do that, just simply go to the homepage of gravitational.com, go to docs, teleport, and then simply click on download. So then search for the correct file. So note, this is here a new release. This is the version 5.0 beta version, but I have used the version 4.3 on my Docker container, so that is very important that we choose the same version here. So otherwise there can be problems. Okay, so we need to search for the 64-bit Debian file here. So this is this one here. I will just copy the link, go to my server and download this with wget. So this is pretty easy. Then we will just simply execute, we don't need sudo here, dpkg-i for install teleport Debian file, and this is automatically installed. Okay, great, that was everything. Now we need to create a new teleport.yaml file in the etc folder. So I will go back to my Visual Studio Code here and add a new remote connection to the host. And I have already created a template. So note, you don't need to write down everything. As always, just go to my written blog article. There you can just copy and paste those templates and customize this. So let's save this file, and this is very important to place this in the etc folder as teleport.yaml. And then we need to change some things here. So note, the auth server is dev.thedigitalife.com. 3025. And now it is very important that you have added on your load balancer the TCP protocol that forwards this connection to your teleport server, yeah? Okay, so now we need to set the auth token and the CA pin can just obtain from our shell here. So let's just copy the token and replace this auth token here. Just go back and replace the CA pin and replace this with the CA pin here. Now let's check if the file was created successful. And yeah, that is working fine now. So now I've seen this many times. If you then execute teleport start, I've seen an error that says, well, there is a certification error or certificate signed by unauthorized authority here. So this error can occur if you have done something wrong and the CA pinning is not working. It can be the case that there is some information cached. So if you see that error here, you probably should also remove the var lib teleport. So if you do this, the cache is being removed and you should retry again. The good thing about this is if you have set this teleport.yaml configuration file on your node, you simply can now just execute systemctl enable teleport --now. So that will automatically create a symlink and start the teleport service in the background. If we execute a ps-aux and grep for teleport, you can also see there is a new process that is running, and this is automatically handled by the systemd. So this is very important. If you reboot your server, the teleport daemon is automatically started in the background. So this is the best way to easily do that on your nodes. And if we go to our web interface here and do a reload, you can see there is the new node here. This is called teleport node 1. So this is depending on what we have entered here as a node name. So you can also change the name if you want to do that. And let's simply just connect as a root user to this node. So if you see something like this here, this is a private IP address for some reason, yeah? And of course the connection doesn't work then. So if you want to change the IP address of a node, you need to change that and add an attribute in the static configuration file. So go back to our teleport configuration file, and now we need to add a new attribute that is called advertise IP. And then we can simply just enter any IP address that is accessible from the public internet. So we just go back to our cloud environment and copy the public IP address of our node here, add this as an advertise IP address, and then we can simply just save and restart the teleport daemon by systemctl restart teleport. And if we go back to our web interface, do a reload, you can see the IP address has now changed. So now we should be able to access the public IP address when we click on connect and add the root user. And you can see I'm now logged into my teleport node 1. So this is how you can easily add different nodes to your teleport server and manage multiple servers with that. So I think this is pretty awesome. But what if you have a server that is behind a NAT firewall, just like I do? Everything on my home network is basically behind a NAT firewall and I cannot do a port forwarding. So if you want to manage those kind of servers behind a NAT firewall, or if you have IoT devices behind anything, you can also use the reverse tunnel to connect these machines from inside your networks. So this establishes the connection from inside your local network to your cloud instance, and then you can basically just use this reverse tunnel to manage your SSH servers behind NAT firewalls from anywhere. So let's also have a look at how to do this, and I will create a new virtual machine. I will quickly install this with Vagrant, so let's have a look at this. So let's create a new virtual machine because I need a new virtual server here, and let's just quickly install a new virtual machine on my local area network. How I would do this: simply create a new project folder, Ubuntu test 1 for example, and then I will simply copy a Vagrant file, go to the folder and enter Vagrant up. So this will automatically create and provision a new virtual machine on my hypervisor. So if you want to know how I do this, this is pretty easy and awesome. I also did a video about Vagrant and how you can easily provision new virtual machines with Vagrant. I've put your link to the video in the description below and just check it out. Just go to my Vagrant machine and just download the image here. And install this via dpkg install teleport. Enter a new teleport.yaml configuration file in the etc folder and simply just use the template I've used on my other machine here. So the first change we need to do is we need to delete the advertised IP address and replace this with a complete new token, because we cannot use the same token on another server. So let's just go to our cluster here, connect a new shell with the root user and enter the tctl nodes add. That will create a new invitation token. We can just simply copy. So the CA pin didn't change, so we can simply do that. So note, we now want to create a reverse tunnel here. The only thing you need to change is the port of the auth server here and set this to the proxy port, the 3080. Write this and simply execute teleport start. Sudo. We need to run this with sudo permissions. Okay, so this error happens because I have forgot to set up the public IP address of the proxy server in the teleport.yaml configuration file on the main server. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let's add those entries here. So as I said, I have already added the public address for the auth service, but we also need to do the same for the proxy service. And this is very important when you want to set up a reverse tunnel. So we first want to add a public _ADR and thus simply just enter dev.digitalive.com. You don't need to specify a port here. And we also want to add SSH public _ADR dev.thedigitallive.com. And now we simply can just save this and restart the Docker container. So if you don't see anything here, that should be fine. Let's go back to our web interface and let's reload the page. And there you can see we have a new entry. Well, this has the same name because I probably have forgot to specify the name. So let's go back to our server and let's quickly edit this file here and change the name to teleport node 2, for example. Let's just restart the container, or we can simply just now enter systemctl enable teleport -- now. So this will automatically start the teleport service in the background again. And let's go back to our cluster, let's refresh that and let's try to connect to teleport node 2. So we now need to choose the vagrant user because we cannot simply just use the root user, and this is why I have added multiple users, because I knew I wanted to create a new vagrant machine. And now we are in the vagrant machine. So now this is connected via reverse tunnel, and this is pretty awesome because you can easily use that to connect IoT devices or any servers that are behind a NAT firewall or that uses shared IPv4 connections from your ISP. So this is amazing. So this is how you could easily install Teleport and use that to manage all your SSH connections, no matter if you are doing this on your home lab or if you want to implement this in a company environment. I think this is a very great software and I think this is absolutely amazing. So one thing I have not covered on this video is the SSH client. So there is also a terminal application from Teleport you can easily download and install on your Windows subsystem for Linux or on any client, wherever you want to use that, and use this as a terminal application, and you can simply just use this like a normal SSH connection. You can also copy files like SCP with that. You should just simply have a look at the documentation, but you could also leave me a comment if I should do another video about the SSH client, how to copy files with that and so on. And also, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like button. Remember, I always do some content about this stuff, so about Linux servers, deployment methods, DevOps stuff, and I also do mainly everything that is geared towards IT professionals. So if you like this, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and if you have any questions, you can come anytime on my Discord community or jump on my live streams. Remember, I stream every Wednesday and Thursday on Twitch and sometimes YouTube, so check out my live streams and we can have a discussion about this. So before I go, I want to thank all my supporters on Patreon, especially Mason, who is the producer of this show. So without you, the community, this whole project wouldn't be possible at all. So thanks everybody for watching, enjoy the rest of your day, take care of yourself, and I see you soon.